What's up, folks? Thanks for joining the PR Bunker podcast. Pumped about the episode today with my man Aaron Strout, marketing extraordinaire, future author, longtime podcaster before it became cool, and this knucklehead launched his podcast. Has worked for big agencies, added zeros to revenue at the bottom of the Excel sheet. Awesome dude, good friend of mine. I've known him for quite some time. Has had an incredible career. Is on the second part of his journey, consulting, podcasting, writing books. Cool dude. And oh, by the way, he drops a couple names in this interview about people he's interviewing for his podcast. Somebody who's very approachable, that I'm honored and happy to have in my network for a variety of reasons. But I hope you enjoy this episode of the PR Bunker. Tune in, and as before, please subscribe, share, let people know about it. But check out the stuff that Aaron has to say about marketing, what's going on with A, and some other stuff. Really cool dude. Really just gets it. He's just one of those guys who just gets it. So thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the episode. What's up, folks? Thanks for tuning in to the PR Bunker podcast. Buddy of mine, Aaron, or Aaron, as we'd say here between friends, I've known for quite some time. His story is not aligned with mine in terms of the profession, but knows a ton about marketing, and our worlds collided because we have mutual friends, and frankly, the group that we belong to has been together for quite some time, between kids, when we had color in our beard and everything else. But Aaron Strout, the Stroutmeister, thanks for joining the PR Bunker podcast, my man. How you doing?
It's good to be here, big guy D. I'm thrilled to be doing this.
I have followed your career, ups and downs, all the great things you've done, the cool things, being on stage, interviewing people. Now you're doing a handful of new things in all your free time. But one question I always start out with my friends is just, tell me about yourself, your Boston roots, your career. Give me the story.
So there's always the short version and the long version. I'll try to give the shorter version, right? So born and raised in Maine, moved to Melrose, Mass when I was in third grade, did 2 different stints in Melrose, went to UMass Amherst. I studied Russian studies. That's a story over a beer that I won't share. When I got done with grad school, also Russian studies, the Soviet Union had fallen apart, so things were in chaos. I leaned into something I'd learned from my dad, who was a computer programmer back in the 70s, believe it or not. And so when the World Wide Web became a thing, I sort of had some ideas on how to use it. I started a small direct marketing agency, helped them start to build websites and banner ads for clients, decided that they weren't going to get as far as fast as I would like, so I went to Fidelity Investments, did 9 years there, did 2 startups, ended up at an agency called Real Chemistry, ultimately the chief marketing officer of Real Chemistry. That took me up to the West Coast with a 6-year stop in Austin, Texas. And now I am semi-retired, but focused on podcasting, a new book, and my consultancy, which I think we'll talk more about in a minute. But that's my shortish version of the story.
Love that. I mean, does anybody ever plan to go into marketing? Like, I was a business major, and I hated math, and it drove me to do my first co-op at the Globe, writing about dead people and obituaries, and I found myself here. But Russian studies, holy shit, bro! Like, Russian studies and marketing, 2 different ball games. I mean, that's why.
I tell people it's one of the most expensive history degrees I could have ever taken. But the version there is I loved languages. I took French starting literally in elementary school all the way up through high school. I knew that I was not going to major in French. And so I went to UMass, and when I was there, this is when Gorbachev was in power, and I was like, there could be some cool business opportunities down the road. So I started to do that, and then when I got done with UMass, I realized I needed more language and economics, et cetera. So I went to Georgetown, and that's, like I said, 91 is when the wheels fell off. And so went from learning out of history books to the newspapers, and it was just too chaotic by the time I got done in 92. So I leaned on my technology skills and, became a database developer for a short while, and then took that job at the direct marketing agency.
Cool. Well, I would argue that marketing is a language, right? It's just learning other people's languages and getting the people they're trying to influence to understand what they're saying, to take a call to action. And want to, spend the next couple minutes here kind of exploring your agency kind of marketing worlds. I mean, when we started in this business, social just became a thing and was owned by folks like us because we can be creative and can write. Fast forward to today, the agency world is much different than what it started in terms of who bought who, who's doing what services provided, what clients expect out of an agency partnership. So now that you've sort of closed that chapter of your book, pun intended, what's your assessment on where the agency world is and what clients are looking for? Kind of give me the Aaron Strout sort of 10,000 foot view.
Well, I love that question, Don, because I think it's something that, one, there aren't that many people like us that sort of, make it through for 20, 30 years and come out on the other side to be able to tell the story. People either become lifers or they sort of burn out somewhere along the way. And it is interesting because I remember very distinctly the agency space back in Boston and New England in those days. I was part of an organization called Boston Interactive Media Association. This is back in I guess this is late 90s, early 2000s.
Just a couple of years ago.
Just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago. But, there were still a ton of independent, like mid-sized to larger independent agencies, like the Arnolds of the world. All of these have been gobbled up. And so you essentially have these 5, or 4 now mega companies like the Omnicoms of the world and the Havasas of the world. And then you have a lot of smaller entities. That was why Real Chemistry, which I came from, was one of the sort of unicorns in the fact that it was so big. It's, when I left, it was $3 billion, over 2,000 people, deep focus on healthcare. I will say, the biggest macro changes that I think I see is it does feel like it has become a little bit more of a sausage making process these days, where I know at Real Chemistry, when we used to go up against some of the bigger holdcos, they're like, look, you're smarter, you're better. We can tell that you've got the talent, but we need the global reach, and we need the fact that, they can do it for pennies on the dollar because they hire a million sort of younger, inexperienced people. So I think there was more quality and more focus back in the day. I'm sure everyone says that, it's like we used to walk 3 miles uphill on our hands in the snow, but
yeah, barefoot, by the way.
Barefoot, of course. Yeah, yes. Right. So I think, the macro takeaway is, it is changed. The holdcos have changed a lot of things. There's still a lot of good that exists out there. Obviously, there is a profound occurrence that's happening right now with generative AI. I have thoughts on that, but it is interesting to see how that's going to impact the space over the next 3 to 5 years.
1,000%. I mean, I think to your point, back in the days, writing press releases, writing content, full content streams for websites, or just even copy for advertising was all done through this. Now we have these tools that can get us to that point pretty quickly, but I still feel like there's some humanality that needs to live in the content space. So now that you landed there, I'd love to get your talk, your kind of POV on it, because I feel like AI is not this thing that we hide anymore. I'm overtly talking about it with my clients and how I'm using it. In fact, training them how to, train the systems to do things a little more quick, faster. What's your POV on how AI is impacting, will impact, and where potentially it could be going for the marketing space?
Well, I think you and I are very much aligned. I'm a big believer in the fact that a friend of mine made the analogy that this is a little bit like when Photoshop became a thing. Photoshop didn't stop people from being creative. It did not stop people from designing and creating, but it gave them tools that they could automate a lot of the rote things that weren't that exciting to do and get to the end result faster, which allowed you to maybe give the client several different options or allowed you to get more detail. And so I do love it as like this scaffolding tool. So whether you're creating outlines or you're using it to do research, I think it can come up like I with my podcast, which we'll talk about, we both use Riverside. I love the fact that it auto-generates the show notes for you, right? That's one of those dumb things that it wasn't hard for me to write, but it would take probably half hour, 45 minutes. And by the way, I'd miss things. And with the show notes, it's like, oh, okay, this is exactly what I need at the end. So I think to your answer of how is this going to impact the space from a visual perspective in particular, like video and, just overall graphic design, it's going to have a profound impact. And I think you and I saw this with the group that shares, within our friendly confines. There was a ad that was done strictly through AI for Liquid Death. And it was amazing. I mean, and if you haven't seen this, like maybe we could throw a link to it in the show or just go out and Google it. But the creativity is amazing. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And so, that's a brave new world for sure.
I agree. I sort of equate it to like the Industrial Revolution, but impacting the marketing area where we're still doing the thing. We're creating content, we're creating visual experiences, getting a brand mission, whatever your client happens to be, to engage with an audience or audiences and getting them to take an action. Enroll, buy, approve, right? There's still some old school things that work, like door knocking with grassroots campaigns, but ultimately AI, in terms of the creative language, the word, the visualization, is only going to help us, spend more time in the creative vision and the strategy and building some of those bigger thoughts within the campaign. And it's only going to get better, faster, and quicker, which is good stuff. So, I love where I kind of landed for a title for this podcast, because most people say, what the hell are we talking about, a wolf and a podcast? And you've alluded to it a couple of times. But for your edification, our audience here, I have a white German Shepherd. Her name is Daisy. She's about 100 pounds. Aaron was the first one in our group to call her the white wolf. So anytime I reference my dog, I call her the white wolf. But there's a tie to the term wolf in terms of one of your next multiple things. So I'm going to open that door and let you walk through that, my friend, and tell us about your wolf.
Yeah, so I will say I have this odd fascination with wolves. I think they're beautiful creatures, and anyone that has studied anything about them knows, like, what an input, how symbolic they've been over thousands of years. And so when I saw Don's white wolf, I was like, that's a wolf. And so Daisy's one of my favorites. Because of the fact that I do love wolves, and as Don nodded to up front, my friends call me AA or Aaron from the Key and Peele skit. 2 or 3 years ago, I had this like odd epiphany that for one of my fantasy football leagues, I was going to create a team called the East Bay Aardwolves, because I live in the East Bay of California, near San Francisco. And so as I was thinking about my post-life from Real Chemistry, I wanted to do something that was unique, right? This is what marketers think about is, can I own the URL, which I haven't bought yet, but I have some that are on hold. And then, can I own the space from an SEO perspective? And I want to stand out. And, we're storytellers, both as PR and marketing people. And so can I have a backstory where someone says, oh, what does Aardwolf mean? And, I can say, well, this is what the backstory is. It's part me, it's part my fascination with wolves. And about it is a marketing consultancy helping companies tap the 30 years of expertise that I have in terms of setting things up so that they may not be able to or want to afford me, but if they could get a part of my brain, like if they get a part of your brain, Don, from everything you've accomplished, that could be a huge win for them, right? Because we can come in, give them the plan, send them on their way, and then they can hire, cheaper resources to go and execute on those plans.
Absolutely. The particular types of clients you hope to engage with over the years?
Yeah, there's a couple that I'm currently working with now. And so digital health has always been a space of mine that I find fascinating because it really brings that innovation, technology, and do-goodery of the world, right? So they're solving problems in innovative ways. So I'm doing a little bit of work with some right now. And then the other is smaller agencies. So I've had a bunch of people come to me to say, look, we're at where you were when you joined Real Chemistry. It was WCG at the time. We were 45 million, and you helped grow it to, as part of a team, of course, to a $3 billion entity. Like, how can we get some of that special sauce? And then, maybe some past clients or friends. There are a few friends I'm talking to about some projects, but really it's people that want that hard reset on the strategy. Maybe they want to focus on content creation, events, go-to-market strategy, things like that. But that's kind of where I'm playing.
Love it. Love it. It's funny, the things that we learn over the years that you try to apply, and it comes so natural to folks like us because we've been around the block. And frankly, this is the moment in our lives where we have become our parents. And I'm never going to become my old man. And you and I have talked about this a long time because we have a shared experience in that regard. And I'm never going to do what my old man did. But I say the same shit all the time. And just that experience and the gray that we have in the beard is worth the $475 you pay an hour to talk to Aaron about hey, you're not going to do that because of this. And while the market changes, people change, technology changes, the principles of marketing and business in general will never change, right? It's all about the story and getting people. So I love where you've came up with the name, buying the AA Ron with the wolf, and then the work that you're gonna do there. Because I know for a fact that I've watched your career over the past decade plus go from one to another, and I know that there's going to be value for folks when they engage you. So good stuff. As part of all that, there's a reason why you've got this white thing hanging in front of your face. So I hear you're also launching a podcast as part of this quote unquote retirement phase, which is bullshit, by the way. So you're never going to retire. We don't plan on dying or retiring. So that's bullshit. But what's the podcast all about? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So, and that's why I do put the word semi-retired in, because that gives me the out of I can work an hour a week or 40 hours a week, and it's whatever I want to do. And thank you for those kind words. It's been fun, watching your trajectory as well, and being able to compare notes on a regular basis, and having the benefit of being fellow podcasters, because I've been doing this for 20 years myself. This is, I believe, my 5th show. I've done some with Kyle in the past, who were buddies with Kyle Flaherty and others. I think you've had him as a guest.
That's right. Shout
out to Kyle. The premise of the show, it's called the Reaching Higher Podcast. And if you want to find it, you can either Google it or just go to reachinghigherpod.com. You can also find it on LinkedIn. And it's interviewing people who have influence. That might be a CEO. It might be a TikToker. It might be a musician, an actor. I've had some pretty cool guests on already. I have an interview with Al Roker tomorrow from the Today Show. But it's not focusing on what got there. So it's not, Al, you're on the Today Show. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's talking about the societal good that they're doing. And so I had Mallory McMurrow, right, who's a state senator from Michigan. She's running for U.S. Senate, and she's written a book, and it's called Hate Won't Win. And she's all about bringing normalcy back to, and civility back to politics. And she's doing an amazing job at it. So it's really getting these people, finding people that could be laying on a beach. Jerry Zucker, who is the director of Airplane and Ghost and Ruthless People. And instead they're choosing to really focus on doing things that are helping society move forward. And they're about a half hour. They're across all the major platforms. You can also see the videos on YouTube. So I've really liked it so far. I've only been at it for this version for about 5 weeks, but I see good things
Love it.
coming down the pipeline.
Well, as somebody who has learned over the years that I can still do good work with good people, with good clients, and still make money and have the lifestyle I have, I've landed on a mission-driven, impact-focused place with all my clients are impacting the lives of other people in some way, shape, or form positively. And I bring people on this podcast that are all also basically doing the same. So I appreciate that narrative. And I do have to lean in on the podcast for a second, though. Like, you've done this multiple times over. What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? What's the easiest thing to do? What's the hardest thing to do? And I ask that question because people say, I can't do a podcast. Bullshit. It's not hard to do. Turn on the camera, start talking. Like, you've learned some things about podcasting. What's like 2 or 3 tips you give to somebody who wants to start a podcast?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I actually talked to a gentleman yesterday who I said to him, I don't recommend doing podcasts to everyone because I feel like most people are not good at them and most of them do not have a differentiated POV. He happened to be in a very niche space, and based on his life's work, I felt like it was appropriate. So a few of the things that I talked to him about is do a lot of prep work. I really try to dive deep. I mean, obviously you have the luxury of knowing me and seeing all my thoughts on an almost daily basis. So that helps with the cheat.
Sure does.
I had the benefit of a lot of my guests have already written books, and so I listen to their books or read their books ahead of time, which helps. So I think that one of the things that I hated up front that I've gotten really used to is I listen to all of my podcasts after the fact. And one, it's hard to get used to the sound of your voice. But two, one of the things I realized that I was doing that I really did not like about my format was if you're not doing deep listening, which is tricky, by the way, because as you're trying to ask questions, you want to make sure you get the question right, especially if you've done your research. You want to give a meaningful response to your guest, right? When they say something, they bare their soul. You don't want to just say, hey, that's great, thanks, and then move on to the next one, right? So the other thing that I have found is if you do your deep research, you try to find out some unusual nuggets about them. Put them into questions. Obviously, again, this one is we know each other, so it's easy peasy. We did a little bit of a prep ahead of time. But I will send over questions in advance, and especially when you do have some heavy hitters who do have PR teams, you want to make sure there are no surprises. And you'd be surprised because sometimes you'll go and look on their website or their LinkedIn profile, or you'll read an article, and they're either outdated or factually incorrect. So it's always nice to catch those ahead of time and not have to say, well, I got this off your website, and so you might want to go and fix your website.
Yeah,
so I think those are a few of the things. I'm going to turn it on you and say, what do you like and what do you hate about doing podcasting?
Yeah. One, I treat it like I'm networking with people. And I just love, walking into the room and just meeting new faces, having conversations and learning, honestly. It's every time I do one of these, even for somebody like you that I've known for quite some time, I'm always picking up little tidbits I can apply to my profession or my podcast. What I hate about it is just the scheduling, right? Just trying to find the time to make it work because, that's a bit of a pain in the ass. And the other side is the monotony of the marketing and continue to push out the content so people get here. But the reward is meeting new people, learning some things, and I'll get traffic and potentially some business from time to time just by association with people. So I know that the reward is bigger than the work that goes into it, but it becomes like riding a bike. You do a few of these, get a bit of a process, write it down, and you make it work for yourself. And outside of that, it's great to have tools like Riverside and others that just make it so much easier, even on the production side. It just cuts out the ums and ahs and everything else. What it can't do is fix the ahs, like my park my car and have it yet.
I don't know. We'd want to fix the ahs because that's one of the beauties of our Boston accent.
It is, but when I have captions in the video, it's like the P.I. Bunka. It's PIABUKNAH or whatever it happens to be. But I can't wait. Obviously you have a stack of folks on that podcast, which is pretty interesting. So I do encourage people to check it out and subscribe and everything else. But and clearly, the other corner of your triangle between your consultancy, the podcast, is your writing, and not just writing memoirs to kind of bug your kids and wives and everything, but you're writing a book, which is pretty cool. That's on my bucket list to write a book at some point about my old man, the clock, and that whole thing, which is a whole sidebar for a different day. But you're writing a book. What's it about? What can we learn? When can we expect it?
Yeah, so we're at the very beginning process, so I don't even have a working title, but should hopefully in the next week or two have something. And really, you mentioned like the triangle, so I like that analog, and I'm going to use that. So there's the fact that we talked a little bit about this. It's growing up in digital and then social, mobile. Now we're living through AI. So what are the experiences? What's the good that you can take from the new while keeping grounded in the old, right? Because that's one of the things is I think you have two types of people in this world, just to be black and white. There are gray areas. They either like flashy new object and that's all they want to do, or they're stuck in their ways and it's like, get off my lawn. I don't want to know about this TikTok thing. So I'm trying to take the best of the both worlds. I have been a power networker, not unlike yourself. I've had the opportunity to meet amazing people like Jimmy Wales, who created Wikipedia, Craig Newmark, who created Craigslist, Katie Couric, who I get to interview from the news, Al Roker I mentioned, Chefadon Sanchez, and others. And so I use it as an opportunity, not only to network, but also to make myself smarter. It's like my own masterclass, right? So I love that aspect of it. And then the last is this concept of sort of being kind relentlessly. And I was talking with someone yesterday, and the idea is it's picking up the paper when no one else is looking and throwing it away, and not doing it because you're trying to be, a kiss ass, but you're doing it because you know it's the right thing to do. And I've always, with my teams, with my clients, with people, guests, I always try to thank them and be gracious. I wish people happy birthdays privately. I send them a little video. And I do see that goes a long way in building deep relationships with people. So I guess that's tied into the networking piece. So it's a little bit of my story arc, what I've learned. And then the last piece, which really is that third piece, is the success of Real Chemistry. Taking them from a $47 million company to a $3.1 billion soft exit, and really growing all the services and making them one of the largest independent healthcare agencies, advertising healthcare agencies in the country. And there's a lot of pride with that. And again, I did not do that by myself, but I would say I was one of maybe a dozen people that had a disproportionately large role in helping get to that place.
Love that.
When you ask when is it going to be out, six-ish months.
Got it.
At the minimum, South by Southwest next March, but maybe a little before that.
Got it. You've been to a couple of those shows, right, over the years?
1 or 18,
One or
yeah.
two? Yeah. So my next sort of transition here, it ties to the entire thing. I've been toying with this concept of a professional crescendo. Not that it comes down the other side, but like we've learned some things. We've gone through the 300 yards of stink pipe like Andy Dufresne and Shawshank Redemption and came clean on the other side. So your consultancy, your podcast, the book is a crescendo of the things you've learned, the experience, the good, the bad, the ugly. You were studying Russian back in college, right? I'm sure you could never envision that your crescendo would lead you to this particular place. But if you were to go back and speak to the 25-year-old, 23-year-old Aaron Strout, what would you tell him?
Well, I love this question, and it's one that I think good podcasters or good interviewers ask, because it does provide some deep insight, right, as to how could I help myself. So one would be network faster and do more of it, because I think that while I got to a great place, I wish I had done it sooner. I wish that I had maybe taken some more risks along the way. I was risk averse for the first 6 holes of my 18 holes on the course, and probably could have done more bigger and bolder things. But again, I ended up in a good place. And I guess, from a nostalgic perspective, and this is personal versus not, I know you lost your dad. I've lost both my mom and dad. And I don't think I took advantage of, especially in the later years, spending as much time and effort with them. They were on the other coast, and I had my own family, and I got busy out here. And so I do look back and wish that even though I had a great relationship with them, I had invested a little bit more in that in the long run.
Yeah, I hear you 1,000% on that. And you bastard, because you just stole my last question. Well, second to last question, really. Because one of the things I always love talking about is a buddy of mine asked me the other day, is like, man, if you could spend 10 grand on anything, what would it be? There are people, I'd buy this, and I was like, I'd spend 10 grand for like one more fishing exhibition with my old man. And it stopped the room. Just stopped the room. And I was being legit. Like, my father would wake us up at 5 in the morning. I'd be fucking pissed. We'd go to the store, get a couple subs, and I'd eaten an Italian sub at 8:30 in the morning on Concord Pond, trying to fish for bass. Like, loved it, hated it, but I realized for him years later, like, that was it for him, right? And now that my kids are older, 21 and 18, going off to college, there's a reason why I drive my oldest to MGH every single day when she has to go to work. And you try to get that time. And I absolutely agree. So my question back to you, and if you could spend 10 grand, clearly it's going to be something with your parents. What kind of experience would you create for the two of them, or you and your dad, or you and your mom? What would that look like?
Well, I'm going to diverge a little bit, because that's an easy one, and for all the reasons that you just mentioned.
All right.
And it's funny, my mom in particular was extremely frugal, and so it was a little bit of like pearls before, or
she'd tell you to save it. Keep the money.
She'd tell me to save it. So what I did do, and I actually do not regret it, it wasn't quite 10 grand, but we're both Patriots fans. You can see my wicked big Pats fan up on my thing, is I took my son to the 2018 Super Bowl. It played in 2019 in Atlanta. It was the one that they beat the Rams in for the second time. And what I will tell you to this day, my son's now 23. He lives in LA. I live up in the Bay Area, is both of us will say it is one of the top 5 things that we've ever done in our life. And we actually went with also friend Jamie Punishell and his dad. And it was just such a special time together. And given the fact that hopefully it's not their last Super Bowl ever, but we knew it might be the last one in a while. that was worth every single penny that I spent on that trip.
Love that. 1,000% double down on it. Now you open the door to the Patriots. I mean, there's a lot of Celtics are doing what they're doing. We won't even talk about the Bruins. The Red Sox are actually making some noise, actually playing pretty well recently. But there's a little bubbling in the water around Patriots Nation this year with Mr. Vrabel coming in and some changes. I mean, I need your hot take. What are the Pats going to do this year?
Well, I think my hot take was probably better whenever it was 4 or 5 months ago, when I loved the hiring of Mike Vrabel. And I actually even loved the fact that they brought Josh back, McDaniels, their offensive coordinator. So look, I'm probably a more than a glass half full kind of guy. I do think Drake May is going to be amazing. I feel like we finally have the semblance of a line. I feel like we finally have the semblance of a wide receiver core. I love the signing of the drafting of Travion Henderson. I think he's going to be a true difference maker at running back. And I think they have a chance at having an elite defense. They really have a couple of great corners. They have a stout line. So my take on them is they'll probably win 8 or 9. I think they could probably win 9 or 10, and a lot of that has to do with them having the second easiest schedule in the league this year. But having an adult in the room in Vrabel and good coaches around Doug Marrone coaching the line, I'm very excited about this season.
I am also bullish on them. I'm thinking 10. Maybe 11 wins. I mean, I think the Jets are horrible. I think Miami can't find their own shoes, and the Bills are just the Bills, right? I mean, Bills will probably take the AFC East, but they could be had, and I think they're just, Mahomes is just swimming in their head for a long time. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Well, good stuff. So we covered the podcast, we covered your business, we covered family. Love this conversation. These are the best kind of podcasts. Again, if I were to teach myself how to do this earlier, I would have actually been podcasting probably before it even became a thing, because I just love the engagement, love the conversation. So
totally.
Before we wrap up here, where can people find your stuff? Where should we direct people to connect with you?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So the easiest way is I do a lot these days on LinkedIn. And so it's just LinkedIn, /Aaron Strout, AARONSTROUT. Also on Instagram, that's a little bit more on my creative side. Both me personally, it's Aaron Strout, and then the Reaching Higher Pod, which I'm starting to get some traction on. I share little clips, video clips or audio clips from the show. And then I do have the Reaching Higher Pod, just like it sounds.com. And that's where you can go and you can find the show on any of the platforms you want, as well as my other social platforms. So
love it. Love it. Let me ask you one last question. Anybody that you had lined up for your podcast over the years, you were kind of nervous of interviewing?
What's funny is I definitely was nervous about the Katie Couric interview. But going way back to the beginning, and actually just read an article as I was doing some research for my new book on, what was I talking about 20 years ago? And it was with Michael Arrington, who founded TechCrunch. I think he was maybe my third or fourth podcast interview I ever did, and really the first big one that I ever did. And he was a little bit of a prick. And I met him at one of their events and got this lined up, and it was over the phone. And I remember getting 25 seconds in, and he said, "Aaron, can we stop for a second?" I said, "Okay, sure." And he said, "Let's just take a breath. You're a guy, I'm a guy. We're just having a conversation here. I know that you're probably a little bit nervous, but you don't need to be." And we went on and had a great conversation. It taught me something tremendous, which was it's always just a guy or it's always just a woman, and you don't need to be nervous. And most people, for the most part, are pretty cool. So yeah, that was definitely when I was nervous. It showed. And then Katie, I was a little nervous, but she immediately set my mind at ease.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that starstruck kind of action, right? But at the same time, you're right. They're just people that have jobs. They just happen to be on TV or wear helmets and pads going to work. But love that. And for me, I've always enjoyed the interview process, even going back to when I was interviewing politicians at the State House and other folks that wore really expensive suits, and I'm in front of them with a T-shirt and jeans and a notepad and a pencil because I'm a reporter at the Globe. And you just realize you're just trying to get a story, tell a story, and help people, get their narrative out there in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like the podcast platform in general has really had a resurgence over the years. I mean, more so than I think the first time around. And I think it's big on the fact that technology, AI, accessibility, and the ability to market this thing in a variety of ways. So you're not relying on the traditional media, if you will, to get your story out. But to your point, it's just not like turning on the microphone and getting a camera, but there's some nuance to it. So one, I appreciate your hustle in your second, third, fourth, ninth career, whatever career you're in, semi-retired.
One of those, yeah.
One of those kind of things. But appreciate you joining me today on the PR Bunker Podcast. People, please follow Aaron. Check out his podcast. Grab his book when it does come out in 6 to 9 months, whenever it happens to be. It's going to rock on the New York Times bestseller list or something like that. You can retire again, man. All good stuff. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate being here as well.
All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PR Bunker Podcast. I can't thank you enough for listening, sharing, and commenting, and doing the thing. And slowly but surely, we're getting there, and we're getting more listeners and viewers to this podcast, which I absolutely love. Aaron was fantastic. I could talk to him all day long, and unfortunately, I go about 20 to 30 minutes, but Aaron and I could probably have talked for about 3 hours. Incredible things that he's working on, wonderful stuff around his podcast, the book, Katie Couric and other folks that he's going to be interviewing on his podcast. I absolutely suggest that you subscribe to that podcast. One, because it's a quick listen, it's good content, and Aaron's just a great guy. I feel compelled to just promote him as much as I possibly can, because he's somebody who's I've followed all along in my career, and he and I have been really good buds in a variety of ways, and I would highly recommend you engage with Aaron in some way, shape, or form, especially if you're a business that needs some consulting and some help. Aaron's quite the guy, great experience in this space, somebody who I trust that's in part of sort of my inner circle of my network. So thank you again for tuning in to the PR Bunker Podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe. Tell people, if you have a client or you want to be on the PR Bunker Podcast, talk about marketing communications or whatever the hell you want to chop it up, I'm here. Hit me at don@prbunker.com. And oh, by the way, I just relaunched my website. Check it out, prbunker.com. Whole new design. Got a nice little unique logo that aligns with the vibe I got going on here. Very black and white. And that's not a joke. It's literally black and white. But I'd love to get some feedback on it. But thanks again for joining the PR Bunker Podcast. And I'll see you on the other side.